My name's Beth Tarleton. I'm going to be doing the session this afternoon. So the plan is to do a bit of a presentation and share a video in the middle. But I don't think there's going to be that many of us. So quite happy for it to be really informal, for people to put questions in the chat or to put your hand up while I'm talking, and then have a discussion at the end, if that's all right with everyone. So I hope you can all see that. Somebody put their hands up or nod at me. Thank you, Alison. I can see that you can see that. Now it'll work. Yes. So please, if anybody's got any questions or I'm not being clear, please just shout at me. Put your hand up. I can't see you all. I'll perhaps put a message in the chat because I need to make you small so you can see the slides. So, okay. So I'm Beth Tarleton. I work at the University of Bristol. I did this project about substituted parenting with my colleague Nadine Tilbury, whose name you'll probably recognise because she's the policy officer of the Working Together with Parents network. If anybody wants to know about the network, I can tell you about it afterwards. So this is to tell you about the findings of the study we did on this term substituted parenting, and I know I don't need this for this to say this for this audience, but I'll just mention that we're talking about support of parents for the best outcomes for their children. And the little girl on the video on the slide is gorgeous. She's in the video, as you'll see, and she's being brought up by her mum with learning difficulties and her dad who's autistic. Her mum's got learning difficulties and slightly autistic too, and with support. I know I don't need to say that to you, but I do to other audiences. But so if I just go through some slides at the moment and then show you a little video, do a few more slides, and then we can have a discussion. I'll just check. Yeah, that's just a message in the chat from Kevin saying that Kate's gone to a meeting. Right. Substituted parenting in the family court. Oh, it moved on to... So, Nadine Tilbury heard that the term substituted parenting was being used in lots of court cases she was reading in her role as policy officer on the network. And she had no idea where this term had come from and how it was being used. But it came to her that it seemed to be a reason for why children were being removed from parents with learning difficulties. And on that slide, you'll just see a few examples of a few court cases where the term came up. In one of the court cases, the term parenting by others was used, but to mean the same kind of thing. Nadine came to the conclusion that in all these court cases, there hadn't been a package of support provided to the parents and then the risks analysed. It was all speculative. It was all assumptions about what would happen if there was a lot of support provided to a parent. And we came to think that the term substituted parenting was being used when professionals were thinking that there would be too much support, so they should still remove the children. So, as I said just now, Nadine had no clue where this term was coming from, how it was being used, what it meant, if there was a cut-off line between too much support and a good amount of support and too much support. So no idea what was excessive and what was just extensive support. And it appeared from the court cases that there was no decent risk analysis happening about support for parents with learning difficulties and disabilities. I do use that word learning difficulties to include parents with a diagnosed learning disability and ones with a milder learning disability that might not get support from adult services, but definitely, as you'll know, have the same support needs. So we are aware that the Good Practice Guidance mentioned substituted parenting in the latest update, because Nadine put it in the latest update. So we thought we needed to analyse what was going on around this term. So we got funding from the Nuffield Foundation, and the project ran from about this time last year until this time 2 years ago until this April. And we did interviews with 21 family court practitioners. So we talked to judges, solicitors, barristers, social workers, a few CAFCAS guardians, and some independent advocates. And we also held focus groups with 21 parents with learning difficulties. We were advised by parents from Speak Up Advocacy, Skills for People in Newcastle, and a mum who's worked with Mind the Gap Theatre Company, as well as an advisory group of professionals from all the relevant organisations. So, wanted to tell you a bit about what parents thought of the term substituted parenting first. And well, you won't be surprised to hear that parents didn't have a clue what the term meant. They said it was hard, too difficult, and that such a silly term shouldn't be used. But when we did explain how this term was being interpreted, we were saying, I think we said something like, when substituted parenting is when you get too much support and when professionals think that the workers are bringing up your children rather than you. They were horrified. They were absolutely horrified by it and angry. But more worrying than that, because parents should be angry about this term, I believe. Some parents had assumed that it meant somebody just helping you, and that's sort of a dangerous misinterpretation. So the second quote there, I thought was to do with shared parenting, like share with your support workers or somebody just helping you. But part of the plan for the focus groups was to try and work out with parents how we should explain this term to parents with learning difficulties so they're aware of the issue. And parents started to explain the term as being sent off or replaced, as in football, really. So, and there was some discussion about substitute teachers, but in the end, our parents advisor group decided not to go with that analogy because you have lots of different teachers in and out, whereas it's them that's being replaced and they are the one parent. So within these discussions, we came to some of the themes that we all know well when we're working with parents, that parents felt they aren't expected to do well. And as you'll see, this came out in the interviews with professionals as well, that they feel judged, they feel small, they feel picked on. And that also they're scared and anxious when receiving support. So I'm sure that's not news to you. But the key thing for this presentation is that parents feel powerless to stop substituted parenting. And that's because of the position they're in when they're involved in child protection. They feel that they have to do what the professionals tell them, or it'll go against them. So they didn't feel in a position that they could tell workers that they wanted to be doing the things with their children. And they didn't feel that they'd be able to stop professionals taking over and pushing them out of their parenting role. As it says in there, they're in a catch-22. It might go against me or make things worse if they did anything to stop professionals engaging with their children rather than them. So how to avoid substituted parenting? Well, the parents were really clear that the workers should be there to support them, and it is their job to do the parenting. So the support workers should be pointing the child to them if they needed anything. So the parents need to be really involved in doing the ongoing contact with the children and the support and whatever, and the support worker needs to be in a supportive role. Some of the parents felt that it would be really good to explain to older children that they have someone coming in to help them, but still, if you've got a problem, to come to me. So it's all about, from the parent's point of view, it's all about making sure that it's the parent that has the primary attachment relationship, and that's really relevant to what you'll see in the professional interviews in a little while. So parents felt workers should be respectful, honest, and supportive. So they should be straight to the point and tell them when they're not doing it right, and show them how to be better with their children. So basically, support workers should be nice, give you support, not have a go, and not judge them. They should talk to you nicely instead of like dirt, which is sadly a theme that comes out quite often in interviews with parents. So, but the key thing I think it's really good if we can get across to other professionals is that parents do know that they want support and they need support if it's provided in the right way. So this is a little bit from the transcript from one of the focus groups where parents weren't as chatty as in some of them. And so they're basically saying that they're just basically agreeing that they want to be helped to understand and to do the caring for their children. So I'm going to try and show you our little film now that the parents made. We made this with parents with learning difficulty, with the parents from the advisory group. And Pip, who was on the cover photo, is the mum who's been working with Mind the Gap Theatre Company, and it's her family in the video, and it's in their house. Can I get it big enough? There. Oh, stop it. Stopping. Share. It's not sharing.
What is it? All parents have a right to be supported with their parenting, but sometimes when a parent needs a lot of support, professionals can get worried about who is actually doing the parenting. Is it the parent or is it the professional? Professionals often call this substituted parenting, and they think substituted parenting is bad for children. When this happens, social workers might go to court and ask the judge to take the children away from their parents. So it's really important that parents and professionals understand what professionals mean by substituted parenting. And it's really important that parents and professionals know what they might be able to do to stop substituted parenting from happening. Substituted parenting is a term that's used in the family law courts to validate and defend learning disabled parents having their children removed from them without their consent. It means that we get pushed to one side, we get stuck with professionals, we feel alienated, we feel like we're being set up to fail, we feel like people are taking over our job. And we feel like we're being discriminated against. This is what parents say often happens.
Don't do that, I'll do that.
No, it's okay, I can do it.
No, I told you, go, I'll do that, go and sit down.
What's up? Thought you had some support today.
Don't really like this worker. She tells me what to do instead of helping me to do it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It feels like I'm playing football and I keep getting sent off for no reason.
Yeah, I was literally just making breakfast for Elsa and she came in, took over and sent me in here.
Really? Well, I'm going to say something. It's not on.
No, don't. We need to stay friendly with her. She could say something to social services like, we're not good parents.
Fine.
Daddy, can you read to me?
Of course, come here. You ready?
Yeah.
I know you can't read, why do you not watch TV?
No, that's alright. I know I can't read, but I can still tell it my own way. Maybe you can help?
Well, Dave, how are you going to help Elsa when she starts school?
That's alright. We thought about it and they have a homework club.
It'll be easier if I just do it.
Fine.
You're being mean. I asked Daddy to do it.
What could the support worker have done to make this situation better or not happen at all? For example, the support worker could have asked, "Are you okay with that? How would you like me to help? Would you like to do this together?" How things could be different.
Hi, love. How are things going? You still having problems with your support worker?
No, we sat down and had a chat to talk about some of the problems we've been having. It's been great. She's been supporting me to do stuff with Elsa, and she's letting us get on with things. She's only supporting me if I ask for it. It feels like she's starting to treat us as parents. It's been great these past couple of weeks. I'm sorry if we've been difficult sometimes.
No, don't apologise. It's my job to understand and work with you.
I just worry about getting it right. Being a mum can be really difficult sometimes.
I've got children myself and I find it hard sometimes.
Thanks for all the support you've been giving lately. It's been brilliant. My advocate's coming later today. It'd be really good if we could all sit down and chat together.
That'll be good.
Parents need an advocate and network of support. This is Claire, my advocacy worker.
Hi Claire, nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, the work you've been doing with Piper and her family.
It's nice to meet you too.
Would you like to sit down?
Thank you.
Having an advocate helps parents to feel more confident, have a voice, and give opinions about the support they need. It is important parents have space and support to share any worries or concerns about people who are working with them. This helps parents not to feel so afraid to work well with others. Parents need a network of support that includes friends and family, together with others from health and social services and community services when they need it. It is really important that parents feel valued and get the right support at the right time and in the right way. I am willing to accept support, and I do accept support. Support only works when it's the right support for the learning disabled parent. So for me, my support tends to be more emotional than practical. It didn't start out that way. I started out needing more practical support than I get now, but as I've developed and progressed, I need less physical support and more of the emotional support. More information can be found on the Working Together with Parents Network website or by emailing them at the following address. This project was guided by our Parents Advisory Group, Pip Bolton, from Skills for People, Ashley Black, Mary Campbell, Ellen Collard, Melanie Collard, Janet James, Kay Jones. From Speak Up Self-Advocacy, Vicky Farnsworth, Alison Owen, Annie Ferguson. The video was created by the advisory group and starred Pip, Kev and Willow Bolton, Mary Campbell, Sally Hoban and Beth Tarleton, and produced by Speak Up Self-Advocacy in partnership with C. Ferguson Media. It is based on real life experiences for some families.
Okay. Any thoughts or comments while I go back to the PowerPoint? Oh. Let's get out with that. Zoom's disappeared. Right, sorry. It's not getting bigger. Right. Okay. So screen share again. So if it's okay with you, I'll carry on with the rest of the presentation and then we can have a good discussion. If it'll let me move it. Sorry, I'll try again. The joys of tech. It's not It's not letting me move the slide forward. Okay, I can stop sharing and probably just talk about what's on the slides, if that's all right, because it won't move forward for me. So we, as we said, we did interviews with professionals around what they thought the term substituted parenting meant, and it was very interesting. There wasn't a main view, but generally the professionals came to a conclusion that it was when the package of support would have to be really high, probably 24/7, but nobody was really clear about that. And that was when the term substituted parenting came into play. One good quote that's actually on the slide that I'm not able to show you is: the support might end up being so significant that effectively the person providing the support is actually meeting the child's needs rather than the parent. But interestingly, through Nadine's discussions with the professionals, other terms were used to sort of explain substitute parenting, and these were parenting by professionals, parenting by the state, corporate parenting. And it was really interesting that quite a few interviewees said they'd never heard the term, but they understood what it meant, which is interesting in itself, isn't it? The quote on this slide is: "I hadn't heard the concept described in any way, but as soon as I read it, I completely understood it." So that just sort of shows the assumptions and preconceptions that are happening in various professionals' minds. I'm going to just try and screen share again, because it would be better for you, wouldn't it, really, to be able to see the slides. Is it happening now? It is happening now. Don't know what was going on there. Right, it's going up and down, brilliant. So I could have gone on for about 50 slides to cover the points on this one slide, but they were all sort of overlapping ideas. So basically, when Nadine was talking to the professionals about how the cases were discussed and were the risk looked at, it came out that the professionals who've been involved in these cases in court weren't talking about specific packages of care that had been provided and been proven to not work for the parents. They were talking very generically and making assumptions, and their statements were not related to specific cases. It was just what they thought would happen, because none of these packages had been put together. It was all assumptions about what would happen if this family got support. So it was decided that it would be bad for the child, so they didn't ever test the support, and the children were often removed. So it was generic, speculative, and felt that in these cases the outcome is inevitable. And in lots of the discussions, long-term support wasn't considered as an acceptable option or being feasible. And we'll see in a minute it's unfeasible generally due to cost. But also within that, as parents regularly tell us, professionals were expecting higher standards from our parents with learning difficulty, than they would expect from other parents. They were really expecting them to parent completely independently. And who does that? But the key thing really is that none of the risks were actually identified and analysed, and there was no plan put in place to stop the negative impacts from the risks for the children. As it says on there, I wouldn't say there was any set process to identify risks from the support that was being offered, no. There was also no analysis of the cost breakdown or cost benefits of having support in the home or removal. It was kind of just assumed that removal would be the best option, especially if there was multiple children. But obviously within those discussions, there was no cost benefit either in relation to the emotional impact onto the parents or the children. And there's also no analysis of the impact of support for parents in relation to the age of the children. So basically the key theme hello Joyce, do you want to say something now?
Yeah, it was, sorry, it was more that I was, around the funding, around the,
Yeah.
because to me, I'm a disabled parent, been disabled now 18 years, and I brought 4 children. And the biggest thing I found was the argument between the services of who was responsible for funding my support. Did get better with the Care Act, but it still hasn't been great around if, and you can see, and it was very much around if I wanted to do something with the children that would benefit the children, adults would see that as a children's services should be paying for that.
Yep. Yep.
And then that was, and I was just wondering if that had come up, because obviously that's the big thing around the substitute parenting. It's often to do with the cost, and nobody wants to put a hand in it.
That's coming up in another project we're doing that's
Right.
about how adult services engage with parents with learning difficulties, which I'd be happy to tell you all about later.
Yeah.
But it didn't come out in this one because this was court professionals saying what they thought would happen. But we know very well that does happen all the time, that parents fall down the gap between adults and children's services, and adults say it's children's job and children say adults' job. And it's good to hear that it was better for you under the Care Act, because the places we're working in, lots of the professionals don't realise that parents should be getting support under the Care Act.
I'm lucky though, because I work as an advocate.
So you knew what to do.
Organisation, so I think that's part of the reason I've been supported so well. But I know of other parents that haven't had the support I've had, and I've been very lucky. But that isn't how it should be.
We know it's not. We know it's not how it's should be. But I do know of another big report coming out in the next couple of months. I don't know if it's going to be before or after Christmas, that I'll make Kate aware of as soon as it comes out. That's reporting on the numbers of parents in child protection. So hopefully, support for parents with learning difficulties will go up the agenda a bit.
Right.
So, Catherine, do you want to say something now?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Is there any evidence or figures in terms of, parents that are in that child protection process actually getting any parenting support?
I don't think there are any proper figures. I think it varies from different places. I think we've got a severe lack of decent data in this area. Just
in my experience, and it is quite some time ago, I did consistent parent advocacy for about 6 years. Most parents in that child protection process, and I don't think I came across any parents that were offered any parenting support other than through an assessment or maybe a mother-child foster placement. So, it mystifies me. Maybe when they're outside of that process, there's parenting support. But within that process, maybe, it's a long time ago and I'm not up to speed, but very few parents had any sort of support worker to come in and support them.
No, I think that's probably the problem, that they're not getting any support, but the risks are seen as high, so they get put into child protection, and then when they're in court, they're talking about if a package would work, and then the assumption is that it wouldn't, so they don't do it. If that makes sense, or it'd be cost too much.
And so in that high burden of parenting, I had to go through child protection because my son pushed her. And there was an argument because I have a disability. I didn't react quick enough. I was in another room. And I was like, well, what would happen whether I've got a disability or not? I can't be in the same room as 4 children all the time as a helicopter parent.
No.
But that high burden is definitely there for anybody that gets services. That kind of, you've got to prove that you're a really, really good parent. And that's really unfair as well, because every child has accidents and every child.
You ought to hear our advisory group on that one. Yeah. It's very unfair. They had lots of discussions about using really inappropriate terms about other groups of parents involved in the child protection. What about the people with mental health problems? They didn't say those words, or people with addiction issues. They were really angry, actually. But yeah, are we okay? Shall I carry on with the slides and then we can have a good old discussion in the end? Is that okay? So the main theme that came out was basically virtually everyone said it was just too costly to provide a high level of support for parents. It wasn't sustainable, and they didn't have the money available. So the quote on there says, also considering what the resources are available to meet those needs. I know we often say resources shouldn't be an issue, you know, they've got to deliver, but I'm afraid, and unfortunately, very often the question in moving beyond the care order or the end of proceedings is what is available, what's on the table, what can be made available to these parents. And that has to be proportionate and doable, viable. It has to have some viable support available that's actually going to enable them to parent. But basically, the theme was it just costs too much. And nobody was looking at the emotional impacts on the children. But at the bottom of the slide there, it says we're still waiting for a Supreme Court decision about money and whether budget constraints can be used as a reason not to provide support. So, well, if we hear about the outcome of that case soon, we'll let you know via the network. It stopped moving again. Right, I'll just talk for a little bit and then I'll try it again. Okay. So professionals. So another thing that came out in some of the interviews was, and this is my type, I've entitled the slide, it depends who's paying, but there was a bit of an understanding for some of the professionals that middle class people could pay for nannies or full-time childcare, and there was no scrutiny on them because they could pay for it. Whereas parents who are involved with the child protection system, there's lots of scrutiny and that support isn't provided. So I think it is about who's paying. And there was a very big issue about attachment. There were lots of sort of inappropriate assumptions made about attachment. I'm just going to try and see if I can screen share and it will work again. Sorry, I don't know why it's not working properly. Is it going to move? No, it's not moving. Right, I'll try and do it this way. Assumptions regarding, so yeah, professionals were saying that the children wouldn't have a normal childhood because of the degree of intrusion because there were too many people coming in and out of the house and children wouldn't know what was going on, basically. At the bottom it says there becomes a point when the court has to recognise that children not really being brought up by their parents in any conventional sense, and that having so many professionals involved in their lives is more harmful to them than having a single parenting figure who's able to meet their needs consistently, who will remain in that role in the long term. I think lots of children have lots of people involved in their life. Oh, it's moving that way now. Okay. And there was also some sort of confirmation bias where, you know, when local authorities have been challenged, they've said, yes, but all being equal, even if we provided that support, then it would still be substituted parenting. And not everybody, but a few professionals, including a couple of judges, talked about social engineering and parents with learning disabilities and learning difficulties. We remove their removing their children is social engineering because we have an issue with that sort of family. And interestingly, at the bottom of that slide, the B is for barrister. It would appear to me that there is a government policy or social policy that those with learning disabilities at the severe end simply shouldn't be allowed to care for their children and the state. It appears to me it is not prepared to entertain substitute parenting because so far the argument seems to be that it's not in the child's best interest. But I think that relates to sort of a wilder societal understanding that most people out there on the street don't think about parents with learning difficulties being parents, and so we haven't got that assumption, and adults with learning difficulties can still be seen as childlike and not seen as being independent. So that's sort of an extension of that societal understanding. So those were the main themes, basically, that it costs too much, and the high level of support is inherently bad for the children. Now, our report makes lots of recommendations, and I've put them on the slides, which I hope you'll be able to get afterwards. But if not, they're in the full report that's on the website. So I'm not going to read them all out. I'm just going to whiz through the terms, whiz through the headlines. So the first one is we really shouldn't use the word term substituted parenting, particularly with parents, because it's unclear. So we should avoid it, and we should be really talk very specifically about the issues that are actually happening with the support. That we need to identify the specific elements of the support package that might cause a problem or might be seen as risky, and we need to analyse and mitigate that risk, try and reduce it and stop it happening. And then perhaps the packages would need to trial different support options to work out which one is best. The attachment theory really shouldn't be used generically and in relation to assumptions, and it should be discussed in appropriate reports by somebody who's qualified to make those sort of judgments. That long-term support should be recognised as an option. It is in the good practice guidance. It does fit with the Children's Act of trying to keep children at home with their parents as much as possible. And if there are issues around long-term support, then basically those risks should be analysed and concerns addressed. And the adults and children's services should work together and think about the family. It would be great if we could all start talking about Think Family again. So that we need to think about how the term learning disability is seen as an indicator of risk and move beyond that. And we should get to a place where we're thinking about a balance between risk and support. And that we shouldn't use terms such as normal childhood without at least an explanation, but we should avoid them at all. And we should be very specific about as I said before, what's going on in that family. And obviously, when professionals are working with parents, they should really make sure that parents understand the term, whichever term they're using, substituted parenting, parenting by others, and that parents understand the concept and the risks related to the concept and what it could mean to their family. And we should recognise that parents feel really powerless when involved with child protection. So it's the professional's job to make sure that support workers aren't supplanting the parent, because the parents really, as we saw before, don't feel that they can tell parents, the parents don't feel that they can tell professionals what to do when they're involved in child protection. So we also have got some recommendations that there needs to be good training for social care and the legal and judicial sectors. We should all be working with the good practice guidance on working with parents with learning disabilities. That everybody involved in these court cases should have experience in working with parents. In fact, Nadine is trying to have discussions and put the idea in people's head that we should have specific courts like the drug and alcohol courts for parents with learning difficulties that are more engaged and know exactly how to work with the parents. And it would be really great if the new working together could have information about parents with learning difficulties back in it, because in a previous version there was lots of information about parents in working together, and there's now a hyperlink at the end. And so those were our key recommendations. But we wrote those in probably March, beginning of April. But just before that, as we were thinking about that, just before that, a Court of Appeal case came out, and it was saying that Judges need to be wary of arguments based on the concepts of substitute parenting. They should carefully scrutinise the evidence adduced by the local authority that the level of support required by the parents would be on a scale that would be adverse to the child's welfare, and should look for options for ameliorating the risk of harm that might result from the high level of support. It is all encapsulated in the simple sentence in paragraph 1.4.4 of the good practice of the guidance quoted above. Every effort should be made not to supplant the parents. So Nadine has put together a starting point for people to think about when they're involved in cases, and you might find this useful. And in the back of the report, there's also sort of a risk analysis template that she's put together. So you might want to point solicitors and judges in the direction of that. So Nadine's saying that the process should always be fair and transparent. The aim is to support, not supplant the parent. That we should always remember that an allegation is not a fact, and speculation is not evidence, and a possible risk is not an actual risk. And so we should always be making sure we have an analysis of the risk identified and consideration of the options to address that risk. And these should be really specific to that family, not generic. And there must be evidence and expertise which is appropriate to justify those conclusions. And so I'll just go on to the next slide. Or there's a report, there's an executive summary, there's an easy read summary with pictures from the video in it, as well as the film and a policy briefing on that link, which is the substituted parenting page of the Working Together with Parents Network. And I can pop that in the chat in a minute if you'd like that. And I've got some discussion points, or we can just have a chat. You can ask questions, whatever. So I hope that was interesting. I will put the link for the substituted parenting bit on the website in the chat so you can get to the reports and things easily. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Because I've got some discussion points on the last slide if we want them. Oh, how do we join the network? I will find you a link and put it in the chat in a minute. Basically, or you can follow the link to the substituted parenting, and it's on the front page. But yes, that's quite an easy one to answer. Any other thoughts, comments? Hi, Laura.
Hello. I think just a comment that it was in the video. It was really interesting and good to see independent advocacy mentioned in relation to child protection. So it's a part of my role, and something that I feel it's sort of an area of advocacy that doesn't necessarily get talked about that much, or isn't as widely known about as it could be. So it's good to see that.
Thank you. Well, we were working with 2 advocacy organisations, and so most of the parents on the advisory group had been through child protection at some point. So it was always high in their mind, and they really rate the workers that they work with. So it was never not going to be in there, really. Alison says, I was working with parents with learning disabilities nearly 20 years ago, and depressing to see nothing has changed. And yeah, I know. I've been doing research around parents with learning disabilities for 18 years, and I think it did get better. I think there were lots of things around valuing people time, and Rob Gregg, and when we had the task force and things, and when the Good Practice Guidance first came out in 2007, it got promoted a lot and people took it on a bit, but there was a issue in that they didn't make it statutory guidance, so it's always been optional. But on the positive, judges are aware of it, and they are asking about the Good Practice Guidance, so it is getting in there, because Nadine nagged the previous president of the family division to look at the guidance, and he endorsed it a few years ago. So judges are aware, so that's a good thing. And there are some specialist services around the country. Yeah. So Jan says, it concerns me that the term substitute parent also relates to foster care in the Child Act, assuming the birth parents have failed. Yes, that's a big thing. Yeah, so that's why we don't think it should be used, substituted parenting. Yeah, and when we've looked up to see if we could find anything on this term, the only things we could find out, the only literature we could find was about foster care and adoption. There was nothing about support in an ongoing way. So Nia says, the child protection process doesn't work in areas of concern for parents with disabilities. The timelines for completing the work doesn't allow for enough time. Well, I believe that because the parents can be officially be regarded as disabled, that you can extend the timeline. It doesn't have to be done in 26 weeks. But if you want more information on that, I will get Nadine to give me chapter and verse, because she's the one who knows the policy, and we can send it out via Kate. But I think you can do that. Kirsty says, I've recently had some positive experiences with newly qualified social workers. Brilliant.
Yeah, hiya. I'm Kirsty Griffiths. I'm one of the service managers from York Advocacy. I have got my camera off because I've got COVID. And I've been working with COVID all week and I've been really poorly. So I'm actually a qualified social worker by trade, and I did work in child protection. Specifically, my area of specialism was the children's health and disability team. So it was children with often quite complex health needs, and then the child protection stuff we did through that was there was a lot more to it. But yeah, recently, because we're wanting to really expand our child protection advocacy work, because we see so often, just from somebody else's previous comment, the sooner that an advocate gets involved, a real difference can be made. One of my advocates the other week, she'd gone to an initial conference, and the social worker was, there was no structure. They were bouncing from one thing to another, and they were just firing questions at this parent. And the parent became so overwhelmed and so distressed, they kind of fled the room. And then the social worker had gone, right, they're not, they're not complying, they're not engaging. This is going to have to go to child protection now. It's going to have to go on a plan. We're going to have to step up from child in need. And my advocate was actually able to go, actually, the structure of this meeting, there's been no breaks. You're bombarding with questions that are complicated, and even I'm struggling to understand what you mean. It's any wonder this mum has run out. We really need to look at making this meeting user friendly for mum, because mum has learning needs. Come on. And then the whole case now has totally swung around. I think the sooner we get in and we provide that support, I think the outcome can be really, really different. But yeah, it literally has been this week, and we've got there's 2 newly qualified social workers, and they're kind of co-working, and it's a pre-birth case as well. And just, it is a breath of fresh air. You can clearly see the training they've undergone. There's a real shift, from your long-term social worker who's been at this 20-30 years. It's been really nice to see. I came away elated.
Do you don't line, do you?
So, Beth, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I beg your pardon. Sorry to interrupt. Brilliant, Kirsty and Beth. Beth, you take me back to, I graduated as a social worker in Bristol many, many decades ago. And I was going to ask the question. But Kirsty, you've enthused me. I'm a little bit more optimistic now, because when I did my CQSW, DAS, all those many, many years ago, there was absolutely very minimal educational or workshops or training on disability, full stop. Now, we're talking about the 80s, and it was a long time ago. I was going to ask you, Beth, has it improved? Obviously it has, listening to Kirsty.
Oh, I don't know. I think they get at Bristol, even though all this research has happened at Bristol, I think they get one morning by John Simons because
Oh
he's
my
done some
God.
work, because he's on the social work. He's done some dad's work around dads with learning difficulties, and he's on the social work team, so he does it.
Yeah.
And I used to do a session on the advanced course, but I haven't been asked recently. But I was wondering if the social workers in Europe came from Frontline, because for the last 6 years, I've done a Frontline morning. Me and a mum and the advocate from Speak Up Self Advocacy have done a whole morning at Frontline, which is quite a lot in the Frontline timings.
Well,
They only get a few
Potentially, we have got quite a lot of agency social workers, so potentially they have come from Frontline. No, when I did my degree, I graduated in 2013, so I must have started in 2010. I do not remember at any point doing any learning, any sessions, anything on parents with learning disabilities.
So and there you go. So 30 years ago, I did mine and you did yours. Oh, that's so
10 years,
bad.
Yeah.
So,
God, was I at uni 13 years ago? Jesus.
Well, it's more for me. It's like 40 years ago now. But anyway, so I was optimistically, unrealistically.
Well, something has shifted. I mean, I don't know if it was just one of those days, and I got two, really fabulous newbie social workers.
Hold on to them, Kirsty. Hold on to them. Yeah.
I will. And I was just like, I felt so poorly all week, and then to do these meetings with you and watch your approach, I'm like, you've just. I think they've cured COVID for me, because it was just lovely to see, because it is really fantastic. It's really frustrating. Sorry,
I'll shut up after this point. I really enjoyed the film. The only disappointment for me, and I understand why it was scripted and designed that way, the only disappointment for me, which as an advocate and as an ex-social worker manager, IRO, all that sort of rubbish, no, don't mean that. The only disappointment is that the support worker should have been advocating for the family. Well, we know social workers should be advocating for family, but my God, I haven't seen it in my lifetime. But yeah, that was the only disappointment. I know it was scripted.
Well, it was scripted because that's what came out of the. Well, actually, in the focus groups, the majority of the parents had had really rubbish support workers, and a couple of them had good. Yeah. But actually, that's what they felt. They felt that the support workers come in and take over and boss them around.
Horrendous. It's same old.
But the bit that lovely Willow said about stop being horrible to my daddy wasn't scripted. She just said it.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Which just shows that kids know. Like she just knew. She was 4. She's 4. Well,
people forget about children, how they pick up things. She'd be a really good advocate social worker, wouldn't she? Really?
Yeah, well, if she's not on the stage in 20 years, then because she just loved every
brilliant.
Minute of it.
Absolutely brilliant she was. Yeah, thank you. It was brilliant.
Right, Claire, did you want?
I was just going to say that. So I've seen a shift. So I've been an advocate for over 10 years, and so back I would say about 10 years ago, if not longer. I think 13. Gosh, 13 actually, 13 years. So I've been an advocate through child protection back then. And the difference that I've saw was many years ago, the advocate wouldn't actually get involved until the court decision had been made and the children were already removed. So the difference I'm seeing, I'm only saying from my experience, is that at least now some local authorities are getting advocacy involved within the child protection stage before it's gone to proceedings. So that's a positive, where advocacy involved can actually prevent it from going to proceedings. So that's I'm seeing a shift there. And on another note, for the video, Mary Campbell, who starred in it, I worked with her. I was her advocate. It's great to see her. She's the carer. She's the support worker.
Oh, she was so bossy. I was like, support workers don't normally wear suits, Mary. And she was like, I'm wearing my suit.
Yeah, so I worked with Mary a long time ago, so it was great to see her in that video.
It was, yeah, because she's still quite hurt by everything, isn't she? But she's moving forward and trying to do positive things. Yeah, bless her. She's lovely, isn't she?
There was never a dull moment working with Mary, I tell you. She was
I can
great.
imagine. Okay, so there's some comments. It's a Nia asked about funding for advocates. Why was the project? That was why the project she worked on folded. Adult Services said it was children's issue and vice versa. Yep. And Laura says it's a problem that there doesn't seem to be a really clear statutory right to independent advocacy in this context. Yeah. At the mercy of funding and discretion of professionals. Yep. Well, particularly for before child protection. I think you can get Adult Services to agree in child protection a lot of the time, because you can argue it's making the process fair, and if you haven't got a fair trial, then it doesn't stand up. Then Jessica says, oh, it's moved. There seems to be a current theme at the moment within advocacy roles, and the use of technology is not accessible. No, it's not. And parents feel like their voice becomes very lost in the process, which could have been avoided had the right tools being used. Yep. And Jan says, good point, me having a right to an independent advocate, as in the MH, Mental Health, I presume, Act, it is a right to have an IMHA. Is that how you say it? Yeah. Parents do need advocacy, and they've needed it since the Warnock Report 1978 and before, but there seems to be little political will to put it in place. Yep. 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 I think, yeah. Let's hope. Let's hope this big report that's coming out soon, it's going to say that the numbers of parents with learning difficulties, they've used the term difficulties to include the wider group, is higher than we think. And it's going to come out from the NFJO, which is the National, what is it? National Family Justice Observatory. So it should get recognised. And so hopefully issues will get raised and there'll be a debate then, because it's going to say there are a lot more parents. So if there's a lot more parents, then the arguments should go through that more training is needed, more advocacy is needed. But let's hope the NFJO promote the report in the right way so it gets to all the right places. Because I've read it, I've reviewed it, but I can't say more than that. It's not my place. But hope the report's coming out soon. And hopefully that will make an impact.
Positive thoughts. Let's keep positive.
Yeah, if we all got some positive vibes.
Yeah,
Katie Birch. So it'll be a report that comes out from Katie Birch from Oxford Brookes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But it should be. I'm sure we will hear about it, and then we'll send it out to the network and make sure. And Kate will get it through the network, or we'll send it to her directly, so she can get it to all of you.
Fabulous.
So you can waft it around at people going. Look, it's a huge issue. Sort your life out. Yeah.
Get t-shirts with the headings on.
Yeah,
yeah. Fabulous. Thank you.
But yeah, okay. I will just find the link on the website before I close it down for joining the network. I should have put that on the slide. I'm sorry. Where is it? Come on, space. My computer doesn't like being online and being recorded, does it? Where's the joining link? Membership. Join the network. To everyone. So there's a link. If you go to that link, there's an online form, and then you'll get the newsletters and things. Basically, it's a free network. The Dean's policy officer, but winding down a bit now. But if you won't have questions, we can put them out to the network. People come back and give you advice or support, share information, and we let you know about what things that are going on. Okay. So 3 o'clock now. I'm quite happy to stay around if people want to. I don't know if we've got another session starting now. Or you might want a tea break before another one, perhaps. I'm not sure.
I need to go, but thanks ever so much, Beth. Okay. Thank you,
all
everyone.
Right, then. Thank you then. Thank you, everyone. Hope it was useful. Email me or look at the website if you need any more information. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Right, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I like the film.
Oh, thank you.
It was really nice and clear. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Do use it. It's on the website, so you can use it with people.
Okay, thank you very much.
Use it, yeah.
Will I be able to get the slide from Kate?
I'm not sure. I would imagine so. If not, email me, I'll send them. But I would
Okay.
imagine she'd make them available.
Okay, thank you for the presentation.
So that's all right. Thank you.
Okay, speak to you another time.
Bye.
Bye.